Imagine over 100 millimeters of rain falling in just 1 hour. Well, it's like a small swimming pool emptying onto your roof. Roughly 4 inches of rain in 60 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's exactly what parts of South Korea experienced very recently. So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack the details of what they're calling an extreme downpour that hit the Chungcheong region. We'll look at what it means for residents and what might still be ahead.
Absolutely. We've gathered quite a stack of sources detailing this severe weather event. And our mission really is to distill the critical information for you. Things like the shocking historical records that were just shattered,
Shattered, yeah.
the immediate widespread impacts on infrastructure, on daily life, and also the coordinated efforts to respond. It's, a really vivid look at how quickly a landscape can just be transformed by water.
Okay, so let's start right there with the intensity. The term being used is extreme downpour, and our sources, they really show just how extreme it was, particularly in the Cheongnam West Coast areas overnight on July 17th. Can you give us a sense of the sheer scale? What are we talking about here?
Well, what's truly fascinating, I think, is the historical significance. Take Seosan, for example.
Mm.
Uh, Over 110 millimeters of rain fell there in just 1 hour. Started about 1:46 a.m. on July 17th,
In 1 hour?
in a single hour. And this isn't just, a lot of rain. It's actually the highest single-hour rainfall recorded in July for Seosan since observations began, way back in January 1968.
Since 1968. Wow.
Yeah, and by early morning that day, Seosan had received a staggering total, nearly 340 millimeters of rain. That set an entirely new July daily rainfall record for the area.
A daily record, too.
Exactly. Though it's worth noting the observation equipment did apparently have some issues after 5 a.m., so the actual totals, maybe even higher.
That really puts it in perspective, breaking a record standing since 68. And Seosan wasn't alone in this, was it?
No, not at all. Nearby Hongsong, it also saw an astonishing amount, 98.2 millimeters in 1 hour. That was a few hours later, starting around 4:22 a.m. on July 17th.
Almost 100 millimeters there, too.
Right. And for them, that was their highest July 1 hour rainfall since their observations started, which was more recent, back in November 2015. But still, a record.
Still significant.
Very. And Hongsong also hit a new July daily rainfall record, with over 300 millimeters by 7 a.m. So if you add in the rain from the day before, the cumulative totals for just those two areas were around 400 millimeters.
400, that's over a foot of rain.
In less than 48 hours, yeah. 419.5 in Seosan, 386.8 in Hongsong. It really forces you to rethink, what's normal for that region.
Definitely challenges the historical norms. So these record numbers, they paint a stark picture. But how did all this unprecedented rain actually translate into, immediate problems on the ground? For people, for infrastructure?
Yeah, that's the critical question, isn't it? The direct consequences. And our sources, they paint a pretty clear picture of immediate widespread disruption. Rivers quickly overflowed. For instance, in Dongjinsi Mayanchamayan, a river just burst its banks overnight on July 17th.
Overnight? Scary.
Yeah, and the main Dongjinshi River itself was reported to be near bursting. Then in Sisansi, a major intersection, Osamjori, it was completely submerged, just underwater by early morning, roads totally impassable.
Okay, so rivers overflowing, streets turning into lakes. What about the direct impact on residents, people in their homes?
Well, the danger was significant enough that people had to act fast. About 50 people living near that Dangjinjin River, they had to evacuate, in the pre-dawn hours.
50 people, where did they go?
To safer locations, like Dangjin Elementary School and the local National Sports Center. And in other parts of Dangjin, places like Bongpyeongri and Mopyeongri, Dainsanri residents in basements and low-lying areas got these urgent emergency texts.
Telling them to get out.
Basically, yeah. Advising them to evacuate to nearby village halls because of the river overflow concerns. It's hard to imagine the fear, honestly, having to leave your home like that in the middle of the night.
No kidding. A very real, very immediate danger. So beyond the local flooding and these evacuations, what about the broader infrastructure, like transportation networks? How did they cope?
Yeah, transportation was heavily impacted. It really shows those cascading effects, right? Korea Railroad Corporation, Korail, as most know it, they announced temporary suspensions on several lines.
Major lines.
Pretty major ones. General trains on the Gyeongbu line between Seoul and Daejeon, the Janghang line between Cheon and Naeksan, the Seohae line too, even parts of the Urban Railway Line 1, the electric trains between Pyeongtaek and Sinchang were stopped.
Wow, that disrupts a lot of travel.
Absolutely. Passengers were basically told, keep checking the Korail app or website constantly for updates throws everything into chaos. And then on top of that, with all this saturated ground, there were real concerns about landslides.
Right, that's another danger.
Exactly. So urgent advisories went out for areas like Dangjin, Hongzhong, Taean, Seosan, Cheonan. It highlights that multifaceted threat. It's not just the water itself.
Okay, so we've got record intensity, immediate chaos, transport disruption, but this wasn't just confined to Seosan and Hongzhong, was it? And is the worst over, or is there still more to come?
Well, connecting this to the bigger picture, you see the significant rainfall definitely extended beyond those specific record-breaking zones.
Mhm.
I mean, by early morning on the 17th, Jiangsu and Chungbuk, that's more central, had over 230 millimeters.
Okay.
Qianan and Cheongnam over 220. Even Daejeon had 123, and Seoul saw over 115 millimeters.
Right.
So widespread heavy rain.
But here's the really critical point that our sources emphasize. More rain is expected to fall than what has already come.
More. After all that.
That was the warning. Yeah, this wasn't necessarily the peak, maybe more like a precursor.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a warning. Can you break down what the forecast was predicting then for the days ahead? Sure. So for the 17th itself, the forecast for additional rainfall was substantial. The Chungcheong region, central South Korea, could see another 50 to 150 millimeters.
On top of what already fell.
On top of what fell. And some areas like Daejeon and Sejong, parts of Cheongnam, potentially over 180 millimeters more. The Seoul metropolitan area also expecting another 50 to 120 millimeters.
Okay, that's significant for the 17th. What about after that?
Right. Well, the truly worrying forecast was for July 18th and 19th. The southern regions, Gwangju, Busan, provinces like Jeonnam, Gyeongnam, they were expected to get another extreme downpour. Totals potentially 100 to 200 millimeters.
And maybe even higher in some spots.
Exactly. Coastal areas or the mountainous Jeresan region, possibly exceeding 300 millimeters more. And Chungcheong could see another 50 to 150, again, with some parts possibly exceeding 180. Even Jeju Islands mountains, maybe up to 200 millimeters. So yeah, a very severe, widespread, and persistent threat in the forecast.
Goodness. With that kind of ongoing severe threat, what was the official government response? What measures were being put in place?
Yeah, the government response was pretty swift, actually. It escalated quickly. On July 17th at 4 a.m., the Ministry of Interior and Safety raised the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters. Let's call it the CDSCH. They raised it to level 2.
Level 2, what does that signify?
It signifies a much more serious coordinated response. It also meant the National Flood Crisis Alert level was upgraded from attention up to caution. Caution basically means a disaster has occurred or is, imminent, requiring concrete action.
Okay, so a higher state of alert.
Definitely. And the Ministry of Interior and Safety started working really closely with other ministries, like the Environment Ministry of the Korea Forest Service, to get emergency measures rolling across the board.
And what about instructions for the public, especially in those areas facing more rain? What were they being told?
Well, the acting head of the CDSCH, who's also the acting Minister of Interior and Safety, specifically ordered intensive public awareness campaigns. So using those disaster text messages, particularly in hard-hit areas like Sisan, Dangjin, Taeantin.
What were the messages saying?
They were telling residents quite directly, avoid going out during the early morning hours and stay away from dangerous areas, riverbanks, low-lying roads prone to flooding, that sort of thing. Yeah. Really proactive communication, trying to keep people safe before the next wave hit.
Right. Crucial information. So we've taken a deep dive here into, well, an extraordinary weather event in South Korea. We've seen record-breaking rainfall that just smashed historical patterns.
Yeah, decades-old records.
Widespread flooding that brought transport to a standstill, emergency services working flat out, and this looming threat of even more rain for large parts of the country.
Exactly. And this kind of extreme downpour, it isn't just, a weather statistic on a chart. It really brings into sharp focus that intricate and maybe increasingly vulnerable relationship between our environment, our infrastructure, and just our daily lives.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront these immediate tangible risks. And it really underscores the need for incredibly robust preparedness, especially as you hinted, these kinds of intense events seem to be happening more often.
That really brings us to a final thought, a question for you listening. How do these intense, short-duration, extreme weather events, which, as we've discussed, seem to be increasing in frequency and intensity, how do they fundamentally reshape our understanding of what it means to be truly prepared for the future? Not just us as individuals reacting to alerts, but as entire communities, entire nations, adapting infrastructure and strategies for a reality that looks different from the past.